Hi, this is Adina here with today's episode of Courage to be Curious with Adina Toval. And if you were a regular listener in 2021, you heard me say at the end of last year that that episode was going to be the last one for a while, or for perhaps an indefinite period of time. And I guess that indefinite period of time has come to a close pretty quickly because here we are at the beginning of February 2022, and we are back on the podcast. Things are going to be a little bit different this year. So I just want to take a moment, whether you have been listening for a long time or you are a new listener to Courage to be Curious with Adina Toval, that you'll understand what it is we're doing this year, because some things have definitely changed. In the past, we have been releasing a podcast every week, and it's been tied to a theme that we've been exploring in our blogs and in our podcast and talking about in different ways. And while we're still going to have a theme for the month, things are a little bit different. We're going to release one podcast a month, unless, of course, I get moved to release another one, and then I will. But generally one podcast a month, and it's going to be tied to a theme. And the theme now is also going to be tied to our new Curiosity Crusaders program. Again, if you've been listening or reading our newsletters and emails and things like that, you've started to get a glimpse as to what the Curiosity Crusader program is. If not, if this is new to you, head on over to curiositycrusaders.com and you'll get a lot more information. But the theme we're exploring on the podcast is going to be tied to this program and the Curiosity Crusader sessions that we are going to be leading and hosting every day of the week, 5 days a week. So if this theme grabs you, what we're talking about in today's podcast grabs you, you really want to explore more deeply, then head on over to curiositycrusaders.com. I realize this could be challenging. People have told me spelling curiosity could be part of the challenge in getting there, but you can do it. curiositycrusaders.com. And if this theme is interesting to you, we'll be exploring it there. And as part of the Curiosity Crusader program, we're also releasing a reflection guide every month that goes even more deeply into this theme. So you have so many ways now. If you listen into the podcast and you say, wow, I really want to explore more, I want to think more about this, I really want to see how this integrates into my being and myself, you have so many ways to do this. So I'm not going to give a lot of information on Curiosity Crusaders now. I've done that. I don't want to repeat it for people who've been listening, but if you're new, you know where to go to get the information. And even if you've been around, you're now going to go to that's website, which is part of the brand new Courage to be Curious launched website out on February 1st. So many things to check out now. And so what is our theme for the month of February? And I'm beginning with the place that I always think we should begin. The theme for February is the self. I always believe that everything we want to explore, whether that's our leadership, our relationship to others, the quality of our lives, our happiness, our relationship with our children, our spouses, our friends, our coworkers, companions, any of those things always begins by considering the self. So that's why this is our first theme in 2022 is the self. I'm often reminded of this little ditty from Schoolhouse Rock, which was an animated series when I was a kid, way back when. And the piece of it that I remember went, the most important person in the whole wide world is you, and you hardly even know you. The most important person, right? Went something like that. And if you've been listening to me for a while, you know how deeply I believe in that. As caring and as loving people we are out in the world, and as much as we want to care for the people that are important to us and be in relationship, all of that begins with the self. So why not take a month, and at least starting with this podcast, time to delve into exploring self. Who is the self? So that's what I want to do. I want to actually begin with some questions. who is the self? Like, who am I? What does it mean to know who I am? When you listen to a number of the spiritual teachings, they sort of peel everything away. Well, am I the things I believe? Well, my beliefs can change over time. So if my beliefs can change over time, am I my beliefs? Am I my possessions? Well, of course, I can have possessions and I can lose possessions. So I can't be my possessions. They can't define who I am. What about my relationships? Well, they change over time too. So when, the spiritual teachers they talk about this sense of impermanence of many of the things that we think of as ourselves. What about our habits? Many of us say, well, that's just me, right? I'm always late, or I'm a procrastinator, or things like that. Are we our habits? We know habits can change too, and they don't change who we are. They just change how we behave. So are we our habits? And it raises this question, who are we and what actually defines us? What defines us and what doesn't actually define us? Maybe we're deluding ourselves that it does define us, but it doesn't. What does it mean to actually be ourselves, and why is that important? So that's what I'm excited to explore today. And as I said, what we're going to be exploring all month in our Curiosity Crusader sessions. And so in this experience of the podcast, I wanted to share with you some of my beliefs. They're just my beliefs. They might resonate with you. They might challenge you. You might disagree with them. They might give you provocative things to think about. All good stuff though, right? If we're living a curious life, courageously curious life. So as I have been thinking about this for a long time, and I've been studying what is the nature of us, and again, some of you have heard me talk about this a lot, that we are actually energy beings more than we're physical beings. The physics of this, the science of this backs me up, right? That even though we can see our form with our hair and our heads and our skin and our bones and all of those things that look physical, we're actually more than 99.99% energy. And energy has really different properties than the physical part of ourselves that we can see and touch. Yet we associate so much more with our physical beings. So as I know, in truth, that we're actually energy beings, it makes me think differently about who we are or who I am. When I think about who I am in my essence, I think about the vibration that I'm sitting at or that I'm emitting at any given time. So what's my vibration? What am I feeling? And what am I emitting out into the rest of the world? And I think you know what I mean. It kind of sounds complicated, but I think you know what I mean. So when you're in a flow state, right? You know when everything's going right. You know when you're feeling really loving. You know when you're feeling just like everything is right in the world. And then you know the opposite as well, right? And it feels differently. It's not just that the events around us are different. It's that we actually feel differently. And we feel differently because the energy inside of us, the energy that makes up our physical being, is vibrating differently. And so there's this energy that we emit. And in fact, as I love in some Star Trek episodes, and I'm a Trekkie fan, it's like you could take away the physical being, the parts that we could see, and you would still have the vibration that would be emitting from us as an energy source. So are we an energy source? And are we the energy that we're vibrating at any given moment? That vibration that is influencing how we feel on the inside and what we're bringing out into the world to other people, whether that's in our workplace, in our home, in our community. So, and go with me for a minute here, but I think about young children. And one of the reasons that many of us love to watch young children in the world, little toddlers or little kids at play, is because they're born with their energy most of the time really filled with a vibrance, filled with a glow. And they're filled with like, wow, unabashed energy. Like the world has not yet influenced them to curb their enthusiasm, to curb their glow, to curb their wonderment, to curb their sense of loving easily and feeling uninhibited. And so we love to watch them because they emit an energy that it's just so contagious and so vibrant and so beautiful to us. And if we think about it, it's almost because they haven't yet had the experiences of life, right? They haven't experienced struggles. They haven't experienced just all the different kinds of messages and the ways that the world influences that then start to shape how that energy is vibrating, right? Well, as soon as we start to go through struggles, perhaps our energy starts vibrating differently. Or perhaps we've been influenced by messages that want to shape us to think that we are what we wear, or we are, who we associate with, or we are all of these other things. And so that can influence our energy, but children don't have that. But as we go through life, and I'm not even going to put age on it because young people can have a lot of influences that come on early on, but we are influenced by the world around us, and the world around us impacts our vibration. And it can impact our vibrations for the better, for the positive, for the strengthening, and it can diminish our vibration, or it can make it, as they say in the energy world, more chaotic or more dulled. And these things just happen. And I'm reminded when I think about this, how what happens in our world can shape our energy in both directions. A dear friend of mine was sharing a story with me about her father and how she goes out in the world with a certain perspective because of what her father, how he lived his life. And she said, we didn't have an easy life growing up. And we often had financial struggles or other kinds of struggles. And my father's response to it always was to see the parts in things in which we were lucky. So if our car broke down on the side of the road or in the middle of a highway, he would come and say, well, thank goodness it was close to the exit and it was easy to get to, and now we can fix the problem and move forward. And so this influence from the outside, from somebody so dear, shaped her vibration, the vibration that she brought out into the world, because living a lifetime with somebody who could see the world in this way shaped what the vibration, the nature of the vibration inside of her, the energy inside of her, and therefore what that she then brings out into the world. At the same time, some of us have had other influences, and we've all had other influences. We've had other influences that messages that said, you're only as good as your last success, or you've never really been very beautiful, or you're not so smart, or whatever it is, whatever the form of those messages are. Or maybe we've been through really difficult health struggles at any time in our life, and they've shaped us. Maybe they've made us a little less hopeful, or a little more just not as excited about being in the world. And so we end up being influenced, our energy is impacted and influenced by what goes on around us. And we know this to be true. We've all been in a room where people were chit-chatting and then somebody walks in, and maybe people are afraid of that person, maybe something really sad has happened to that person, and the whole energy in the room changes. So we know that we're impacted by the energy of others, and we know that we're impacted by the world around us. And so when this impact comes in, does our lives, does who we are, and the vibration and energy we emit in the world become an unconscious manifestation of whatever that hodgepodge is, whatever that chili mixture or stew of influences is? Or do we make a conscious choice? Who do I want myself to be? How do I want the self that I am to feel internally? How do I want the self that I am to, what do I want it to bring out into the world and share into the universal collective energy? And this is where I'm reminded about the spiritual leader Lao Tzu. And there's this story that Lao Tzu's proteges are, say his pupils are saying to him, like, Lao Tzu, you've had such a difficult life. You've had struggle after struggle after struggle, and yet you're so joyful. How are you so joyful after living a life of struggle? And Lao Tzu says, every day I wake up and I ask myself, today you could be joyful or you could be miserable. Which do you want to choose? And it's like mind blowing, right? Because we believe that what happens to us determines how we feel. I know I've been here too, like, oh my gosh, all these things are going on. I'm overwhelmed, I'm this and that, until I catch myself and remind myself that it's not the events that are the determinant of how I'm going to feel in that moment. It's my choice, or perhaps my lack of choosing, that will be the determinant of how I feel. And so instead, the self, if we think of ourself as our energy, do we bring love into the world? Do we bring hope into the world? Do we bring kindness into the world? And I would really say the vibrations of those things that we've given those labels to. But do we bring the vibration of those energies out into the world of creativity, of desire, of companionship and caring and all these things? Like, what energy are we bringing into the world? Are we bringing an energy of defeatism and helplessness and hopelessness, or anger and frustration and overwhelm? And I'd like to say that as we think about this self, very often, and in fact, somebody even asked me, how come your theme is not going to be self-care? And the answer to that question is because caring for the self is actually a conscious choice. It's a practice that we choose when we decide that we want to be a vibration of love and caring and compassion, contentment, joy, or ease in the world. It's not a thing just of itself. It is a thing in service to something. When I was in my yoga teacher training, one of the books that we read, and I can picture the cover of it, but not the name of it right now, so I'm not going to be able to share that with you at this moment, but the whole book was talking about our consciousness around what do we allow into each of our five senses? What do we allow our ears to hear? What do we allow our eyes to see? What do we allow our hands to touch? What do we allow ourselves to, feel in things? And when we kind of look at the five senses, what do we allow our mouths to speak? And the reason that the book was bringing this attention came from this awareness that every single one of those things, including the thoughts we allow our mind to think, influence our own energy. It influences the energy the way that our energy vibrates, and therefore what we experience internally and what we bring out into the world. And so the book was there to say, if you are conscious about the food that you eat because you want your body to be healthy, are you equally conscious about what you allow your ears to hear? TV shows, news, conversations, sounds. How conscious and how well do we curate what we allow in through that sense? What about what we speak? How conscious are we that every single word we speak has a vibration to it and affects both our internal vibration and our external emissions out into the world, and therefore the nature of who we are? About what we see? What do we allow our eyes to take in sensory-wise? Do they take in beautiful things? Do they notice the roses on the bush, or do they notice the thorns on the bush? Do they notice kindness on the street, or do they notice anger and hatred? What do we allow our eyes to notice? Because what our eyes notice and take in directly impacts the energy that we are, the energy inside of us, and how we vibrate internally and externally. So it's a very profound reminder that while we are not what we see, and we are not what we hear, and we are not what we eat, so to speak, and we are not what we touch and feel, and we are not what we speak, we are the energy that is influenced by all of those things. And if our energy is going to reflect a nature of us, an essence of us that we want to be both internally and externally in the world, the energy that we want to contribute into a collective whole in the world, then it behooves us to have that mindfulness for all of those things. What do we allow in? What do we allow out? And for me, that's the nature of self-care. That's why we care about self-care or self-talk. A colleague of mine, Jody Silverman from Moms Who Dare, does a self-talk cleanup very regularly because she's experienced and over time realized how impactful the words that we say out internally to ourselves. Like we never would say to other people what we say to ourselves, but in our own thoughts and in our own words, we shape that nature of our energy. We impact the vibration of who we are and what we admit into the world. And so my hope, my invitation is that listening to this podcast has activated some of your curiosity about the self, about who you are, what defines you and what doesn't define you, what it means to be you, and what the importance of self-care really is. It's not just because we feel better after a massage than we do before. It's because we have cared for the nature of our vibration and therefore our entire internal experience, as well as the external experience of what we have released into the larger universe of the world. And so I don't know if Buddha would agree with me in my description of self, but it's the one that feels resonant to me right now and the one I wanted to share for our exploration today. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, if this has piqued your curiosity, if you want to go more deeply into exploring this theme, hop on over to curiositycrusaders.com. You can also get there through the Courage to Be Curious website. These are all intertwined with each other, and look for the Crusader page because there's a button right on the homepage that says Become a Curiosity Crusader, because this is what we're doing. We are getting curious. We are being crusader about our curiosity in order to live, lead, and love brilliantly in our lives. So join me over there, hop on. And in fact, you get a 2-week free pass. And so by hopping over and signing up, you actually get 2 weeks of exploration on the self absolutely free if you do this, in the month of February here. So there's no reason not to find out what Curiosity Crusader is and to join us in these in-depth explorations. You will also get our monthly reflection guide when you do that. And please share if you love this podcast, if you are excited about where 2022 is going, send me an email at info or adina@couragetobecurious.com or info@curiositycrusaders.com. Let me know. And go ahead and share with friends. If you've gotten really excited or intrigued by this podcast, it is a great idea to go and share it with your friends now, because the Curiosity Crusader community is going to grow quickly globally and bringing people in who are a like-minded community to you, of people who really want to bring meaning to your life by considering these questions of who we are, how we live, how we lead, how we love. And you are going to find them in the Curiosity Crusader program. It is an amazing expansion of what Courage to Be Curious is, projecting out into the world. And we'd love to have you on as part of an active member in this community. Thank you for listening. Come back with us in March. Remember, this will be a once a month podcast, unless I'm inspired to add something else, but a once a month podcast. We will be back in March, and we will be releasing our theme for the month at the very beginning. So stay tuned and hop on over to couragetobecurious.com. Check out our new website or curiositycrusaders.com.